Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our references that we've gathered here to kind of make something interesting for our scene, right? I'll make some kind of some interesting. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit. I just create this box right here. I just created a box. All right, and this is just gonna be PZ, and then I'm gonna use this to kind of just say Control C. What that does is it creates a camera for me. All right, so I've got a camera kind of set up now, and I want to look at my pure ref to kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to set up. So I can delete this now. So what I'm going to probably just do is start with a cylinder. P. Let's hit P on the keyboard. It'll give us our perspective view again. Let's delete that. So this is my camera, right? And this is where it's facing. So everything should be facing kind of this way. And these tubes will represent planes or whatever. And then I can make some different shapes for them. So I'm just going to do 90 for that. And these don't have to be like perfect models or anything like that. They're just like amalgamations, right? So I'm going to do, I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. And then I'm doing this super quick too. So the idea is just extrude like so. All right. Now what I can do is maybe TZ, scale this in a little bit, and then hit, let's move this, same here. Alright, and I can make different variations of this too. So like, I'm gonna grab this, and this, go there, Alt to deselect. I'm just gonna scale these down. Alright, what you can do is I'm gonna make a few different variations of these that I can spray around the map. Right. So this shouldn't take too long, right? I'm gonna maybe chamfer this. Right, this could be like the back of the plane or something. Chamfer it one more time. It could be the front, could be the back, doesn't really matter. Right, I might make let's make I'm gonna do a cylinder here again. I'm gonna turn this into one of like one of those propellers that they usually have. Reduce the radius, reduce the height, remove those. Rotate it about 90 degrees, convert it to an editable poly, right? And then control, right click chamfer, boom, 1, 2, 3, like so. And then it's gonna pull this one back a little bit. inset, boom, boom. Scale it in a little bit, just to give it a little more visual interest. Right click once, shift, boom, boom, right click, shift. And then I can just grab this box, scale it down quite a bit, right? I might want to actually, let's taper this. Let's do a quick chamfer, like so, and we're good. I might put a hole in there just so it's just got a little more visual interest. That's the idea, is just I'm trying to get some visually interesting shapes to do what I'm trying to do. So I'm just use this basic plank as my propeller, attached to this guy. Now it is, make sure it's in the center so that when I pull it out, no matter where it is, it's going to be centered to the object. All right. Maybe we reduce the height. We'll give it a little more thickness. Maybe even push it a little further back. Okay, and then I can just, let's do an editable poly on it. Two on the keyboard. Ring it. Let's do a quick chamfer. Like so. And then chamfer this. Just so we have something softer on the edge. Now we've kind of got like a propeller blade looking thing. Like I said, this isn't supposed to be perfect, so we're just doing amalgamations of what they're supposed to look like. Alright, and then I can obviously just rotate these however I want. Right. So now I've got like a plain, fake plane thing, and then I can use this, copy, make a copy of it, and then just maybe even add it to one of these, right? Make it a copy. So these elements are just fine. Alright, and then now what I want to do is look at my camera, see what's going on. Alright, so I've got like some interesting shapes going on here. What I'm going to do actually is let's go turbo smooth for this guy. None. And what I might do is just hollow this out so that you get like this idea of like, oh man, this thing got ramshackled. And then what I can do is I'm just gonna grab these top pieces right here, throw an FFD modifier on this bad boy right here, and then hit 1 on the keyboard. And I just want to make it look like it's been bent out of shape. You know what I'm saying? Like just mangled. It's like this mangled piece of metal, which is what I was seeing on the references. All right. So now we've got our mangled. All right, so this is our safe frame for the camera. Now what I want to do is grab a plane, hit P on the keyboard. I'm just gonna create this giant plane here. All right. And I can do the same. Let's do another one here. All right. So what I want to do is I want to encompass kind of this thing. So I'm going to control. Actually, let me add some more length and width segments to it. Probably going to need it. I'm going to do edit poly. All right. Grab these. I'm just going to shift drag them this way because this will be my water. The red will be like the background. All right. All right, so the next thing I want to do is Control I this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a noise modifier to my stack here, and then I'm just going to increase it. Increase the fractal roughness, and then I want to make the strength on the z-axis kind of big, right? Increase it a little bit more, maybe even one. That's just a gizmo. All right, so this is cool. What we can do now is let's do a turbo smooth on this. All right, and as you guys can see, what happens is you get kind of this. So let's go into our camera view, right? You can see what it kind of looks like now. See, it's starting to come together, right? I put the pieces on the ground, I put the landscape there, right? And it's starting to do its thing naturally. So I might go here, I might look at what it looks like on ink. So this is cool, because this is what I'm talking about right here, which is where you can use 3D to kind of help you set the stage for what you're trying to do. All right. So I've just kind of laid out these assets. They're strewn around. Give me 1 second. So I've got these guys kind of laying around, strewn around the site. Actually, let me get the Discord up. And so let's go back here. So there might be some other elements I want to toss in. Well, I kind of like this. I'm going to remove this because whenever I'm doing a lot of this stuff, I want it to be default, and then anything else can happen after that. All right. So now I've got these. I might want to go in the back, right? I might want to go back, right? And then maybe even do some bigger ones. So I might do like so, like so. That's a lot, that's a lot. And then edit. add an edit poly to that bad boy, and then do the same kind of thing where I just boom, control I, throw a noise modifier on it, and then fractal, z-axis, increase the roughness factor of it, and then just crank that bad boy up. What I might do is I might just go back in here and then move those vertices up themselves, right? So now we can do a turbo smooth on this, and once you do a turbo smooth, you can it's F4, see what it looks like. What I might do is I might just pull this guy down a little bit so it just looks a little more normal, right? Maybe even go to our camera view, right? Right, I might want to maybe even try rotating it a little bit. Right. It's not bad. So like I've got a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, right? And however you want to place those elements, right? It's up to you, right? You can make the foreground super close and super uptight where it makes us feel like we're peering into it, right? Another thing I could do is like I could make maybe like the cockpit, right? The foreground of the image and make it super close so it feels like you're looking out of one of the cockpits into this kind of valley, right? And maybe I might even just do a quick retopology compute, just so I get so this is a little more calm. All right, that's not bad. I'll do the same for this. Let me actually go here. Just move this up a little bit more, right? And this ground is cool flat. We got one here. Guys, ground is cool flat, but it could use a little more like interest, right? So let's maybe make it a little wider, right? Make it wider so it encompasses our site here. I might increase the length and the width segments. And this is going to be a very subtle noise. This isn't going to be the heavy-handed stuff we've been doing before. I just want to add a little extra, a little finesse to I want to add a little bit of finesse. Let me log in for you guys. Let me have you guys join in on this. So let me share my screen with you guys so you guys can see what I'm looking at. All right. Sorry. All right, so I've got some of these here, and this is a good start, right? This is a good start. And what I might do is for the assignment, which is just to kind of get two different moods out of one single painting, I'm going to make this the line work for this available to you guys, and then you guys can do your own mood painting on that as well. So hopefully, oh, what's up, Malik? Yeah, so hopefully you guys can see the progress. So now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna add the noise that I was talking about. I'm gonna grab the edges, Control, and then Control I to invert it. And then what I'm gonna do is just add another noise filter. And like I said before, the noise filter for this one isn't gonna be crazy. It's just subtle so that I have a little bit of information right on the ground. So the ground isn't completely flat, right? So I've got that going. And I might want to add a water feature somewhere, right? So I might want to add like a recessed pool somewhere, or somewhere where you can get some cool reflections. I might add it maybe right over here, maybe right in the front, or something like that, so that you can have something. And all I'm doing right now is I made a bunch of these little pieces. So I made a camera, made a bunch of pieces, and with that, I'm able to get something that looks like this. So if I go into my ink, right, I've got something very interesting. I've got foreground, middle ground, background, right? So in the first part, I showed you guys how to gather some of the references, and now I'm using some of those references to create some of these elements that we have here. Whoops, I don't want to move my camera. All right, so another thing about cameras, this isn't a 3ds Max tutorial, so I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, right? So let me go into my camera. So if I like the position of my camera, if I like my camera where it is, I don't want it to move, I don't want anybody to touch it, right? This is usually the first thing that they teach you to do in animation school. If you're going to be an animator, the first thing they tell you to do is create your camera. Well, when I was in animation class, this is what they told me to do. Create your camera. If it's stable, it's not going to move. It's been approved by the director. It's been approved by, production, everybody who's involved. Lock it, right? And then save that file. Because what can happen is, if somebody goes and go, oh man, I don't like this shot, or I don't like this view, or I don't like this angle, they'll take your camera, they'll move it around, and then start working from there. When in reality, if yours has been approved, your camera is good to go, you don't want anybody touching it. So you make your camera, you save it out after you've locked it. So I'm going to go select my camera here, and I'm going to lock the movement, the rotation, and the scale, right? And that is just the body, right? There's two parts to the camera. There's the camera body, and then there's the camera tracker, right? I'm going to do the same thing for the tracker. I'm going to lock it so that now, whenever I go, I'm going to hit P on my keyboard. I'm in my perspective mode. So now I shouldn't be able to move it. I'm trying to drag it, not moving. Same with this, same with this target, right? I can't move it. So now if I hit C, I get back into my keyboard, right? But I can still change the FOV, the field of view, the zoom, the aperture. You can still mess with some of these effects, but the position of the camera itself is locked down. And that's why I told you to save it, because people can still go back into the field of view and things like that and then change that. So now I'm pulling back the camera. If I do something like that, I want to then raise some of these other elements, right? I want to then raise some of these elements up. I'm one of those people, I don't even care. I might rotate, like hit T on the keyboard or P on the keyboard, right? I like this. You know what I might do? I might throw a bend modifier on this bad boy so I give it a little bit of curvature, right? So let's start to bend it. Let's go 90. And I don't want to do it on the Z. I don't want to do it on the Y. I want to do it on the X. And then maybe do 90 this way, not that way. I want to do a negative 90. So now it kind of wraps around, right? Like it's almost like the hidden village, right? The hidden leaf village, right? We've got this we've got this kind of background in here. We've got our foreground and we got our midground and we got our foreground, right? As you can see, our midground and our foreground kind of run into each other because of how I've created it, but we can still see how those elements are separated, right? I literally have a foreground, middle ground, background, right? If you keep these three elements in your matte paintings, um, uh, in your interiors, exteriors, if you keep these kind of ideas running, you will always you'll get closer to to a good final answer than without. So now I've got this wrap around mountains in the back that I want, right? That I kind of like. I've got my mid-ground rocks over here. Then I've got my plains that are kind of destroyed and distraught over here. So now, right, this is a good start. This is a good start. And obviously, like if you wanted to, you could go crazy. You could go, let's start picking up some of these pieces, right? Let me go here. What I might do is now I'm just gonna right click these and then freeze these. So when I freeze them, I've said, all right, I'm done messing with these, and now I just want to mess with these other elements. Right? You can unfreeze it, right? Just click unfreeze all, but you can unfreeze it. But now I'm not worried about what am I selecting? What am I missing? Did I miss something? Did I grab the wrong thing? And am I moving the background again? No more worries about that. Right? I'm gonna take this off of inked edge face. I'm gonna go back to my default shading. I'm just gonna grab this guy, right? The only problem that I'm seeing right now is everything right now is too even. Everything is too simpatico, right? The scale of these. It doesn't give you like, oh my god, this is a grand place, right? And I want that for my drawing. I want that for this. So I'm going to use some of my references that I've gathered, right? If you haven't seen the reference, here's my ref board. I have a tutorial on it on my channel, and I just made a tutorial for it that I will be posting after this class. All right, so I gathered a bunch of these references, and I'm looking around. See, like I like the idea of like the earth taking back over some of these pieces, and I do enjoy, right, like you're looking at some of these mechanical interiors, these pieces that are going like the cage system that happens in these, the fuselage. You're looking at the cockpit, you're looking at the cabins, the wires that are strewn down, right? And I'm using a lot of this to kind of give me, man, good information. This is really cool, right? And I can use that to then inform, like, look at how big and imposing some of these planes are, some of these helicopters are. Like, I saw one with a person in there for reference. Let me see if I can find it, and it's so awesome, right? Like how big, if you've been next to a plane, you know that they're massive. But like some of these things are truly massive pieces of machinery, right? Like just flying buses, like that's the idea. And some of these things are sleek, stealthy, like there's just so many different. This is cool. That's cool. So like, what are these, a bunch of ospreys? No, okay. The boneyard, right? Obviously this is like a 3D image, but still cool. Super cool. So I'm just using this to get myself just some inspiration ideas. I went, so now, like, even if you look at this, like, look at how junked they are. Like, they're just like smashed to bits. They've fallen on they like over time. It's rusted. It's degraded. Like, that's what I like. And then I wanted to kind of set it, right? Set the graveyard in something kind of like this. So like that's where you get the mix of both worlds, right? I've got the fuselage on the ground. So like another thing I could possibly add, right, is I'm gonna maybe add like a helicopter looking kind of thing, right? So to do that very quickly and easily, right? I'm not making any crazy shapes or anything like that. I'm just gonna make, actually I'm just gonna use one that I already have, right? That's how simple I'm gonna make it. I'm just gonna use this one. I'm gonna just grab this guy, make it a copy, then grab this guy, shift drag, make it a copy as well. E, rotate, right? Rotate it about 90 degrees, and then place it right on top like so. Right, and the idea of these aren't to be like some 3D masterpieces. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to get an idea out there. Right? Get the idea out. And I might delete this one. The only thing I might do differently that's a little model-y, right, that's a little model related, I'm gonna connect these by about, yeah, that's fine. And what I want to do is I want to bend this bad boy. I'm gonna go T, E, I'm just gonna make it straight again. And then I'm gonna add the bend modifier once again. I'm gonna do 90. It's probably not gonna need 90, but it helps to see. So it's gonna do -90 right there. And obviously you can see that that's way too much. That's not what they look like. So I'm just gonna reduce the amount of angle that it's bending by. Right? It's gonna give you more of that helicopter-y kind of feel to it. Alright, I'm gonna go back in my edit poly. I'm gonna add an edit poly to the top of the stack once again. And then I'm gonna just grab a bunch of these. Right, in this day and age with AI and all this stuff, right? Like you've got to grab whatever advantage you have. Right? If your advantage is you are the best 2D, do it. If your advantage is you're the best, do it. Do it. Do it. Use it. All right? So now I can grab all of these. I'm actually going to grab this guy. I'm just going to move these guys in a little bit more. Just move these guys in. I'm going to grow this a little bit. Just going to shift, drag a little bit more. Maybe scale it down a little bit. Maybe bring it down and then shift, drag it. All right. And then I'm going to group these all together. Just group so that whenever I pick it, I know what I'm picking. I can just drag it around. I'm going to do this one as well. Group, plane, and then group, and then propel. All right. Let me rotate this bad boy about 90 degrees. All right. All right, so now let's go back to my camera view, and I'm using my reference again to see how it realistically looks, right? What happens to these things when it, these things are kind of like abandoned like this. right? You're not really making, you're making stuff up, but you're not really making, you're using the world to inform what you're trying to do. You're using the world, right? I'm gonna now rotate this bad boy like so. Go 90. Let's pull this guy up. Might rotate him like this a little bit. So we're getting some of that. Alright. Now I'm gonna bring my heli in here. I might pull it back. P. Alright, so alright, I'm gonna do a split view. I'm gonna make this my perspective view, and then I'm gonna make this the camera. Alright, so you can see Shift F what's going on. So now as I move, and actually I'm going to turn this into the Inky Doo. Right? You don't need that many elements, right? What you realize, you don't need that many elements to. I might remove this one, maybe replace it with the heli. You know, what the heli? What the heli battery? What the helicopter? Alright, so just placing stuff. You want to be careful with doing things where the lines are very prominent and are leading somewhere, because you're literally just telling the audience what direction to look in. So like if I did something like this line is literally telling the audience, look up here, and it's taking them out of my painting, so, or my drawing, or whatever it is. So you want to make sure that your composition, right, somehow is pointing back to what you want them to point back to. So I might take this guy E, might rotate it so that, right, my line is either going to this mountain, maybe I have it rotate so it's going to this helicopter here. So it's almost like it's pointing at it. I just don't want to create a tangent, right? A tangent is where 2 points meet, and I don't want that to happen. So I might just do something like that. Right now I'm creating these levels, right? And I want to maybe scale this up a little bit more since it's a plane, right? Bring it a little bit out of the quagmire of this whole thing. And then just maybe move this aside a little bit, rotate this bad boy, just moving it out of the way. E for rotation once again. And I'm getting something a little more interesting. Then I've got this foreground right here where this is where I might want to add my surface of water right here. So I might, depending on, let's make it let's make it a plane. All right, so this is where I would then go and hit P. Oops, control, wrong. Go back to my camera. Right here, I might go P, perspective. right? Because I want to add some water. So I might go, let's go M on the keyboard. Just need a simple material, base color, make it blue, assign it, right? And make it super reflective. Maybe it's like a rainy day or something. Just increase this out a little bit. Alright, so I'm just gonna add like these little pools of water, and then maybe add a noise to it a little bit. Make it fractal. Increase the roughness, and maybe do it on, here you go, the y-axis. Right, the reason I wanted to do it on the y and the x a little bit is just so that, you know, you have a little bit of interest going on, so that the edges don't really fall into this weirdo straight line. Right, so that's the idea. Right. Just see what it looks like over the whole thing. All right. So now I've got kind of like my base design done, right? So like this is a good starter base for, you know, most of what you're gonna have to do. I don't want to go too into depth. I don't want to go too crazy with the amount of detail that I'm putting into this, just because it's, you know, the idea is for it to be like a kind of a mood painting, to do two different settings to try to get two different emotions out of it. All right. So another thing I might do is let me add, yeah, just this giant sphere. Let's just do ink. All right. So all I'm adding is like a kind of like a sun or something like that. All right. All right. So we've got a decent base here. So with our base, we can do a quick render, and we can get something that is usable. Either render it or just save it out as a screen grab. And then I'm gonna post this in the chat as well for you guys to use for yours, if you want to use this one and you don't want to create your own for the mood kind of alright, this thing's being stupid. Oh, okay, I rendered it out without that. Let's go to my render settings, make sure my render settings are correct. Alright, so I'm just gonna go into, let's do the Quicksilver render. I'm gonna do a large image. do a large image because it's gonna be shrunk down to like 1920 by 1080. But so the bigger I make it, the crispier the lines will be whenever I do render it out. Let me see if this even works. If it takes any of this into. Alright, cool. I actually might save. Renders. 1.png. Alright, so now let's go here. I'm going to go Tools. Capture still image. And when you're trying to capture it, you want to make sure you've got nothing selected as well. So Alt. Shift F, I'm going to hide the save frames. So I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard, grab that, right? Now we can save and then do 2. .png, hit OK. And now we can head back into Photoshop. Right, we can head back into Photoshop and then bring that image into Photoshop and then start using this. All right. So we can do first file new. Let's do 1920 by 1080. All right. So from here you can start to like use this as your framework for the mood paintings. So if I have a certain, so let me see. So one of my favorite posters of all time is so let me open some of these. I'm gonna copy this image. Just gonna add it to my PureRef. Right. So my first one is going to be Control T. I'm going to use this as my reference for the style, right? I'm going to use the color picker, B. I'm going to start grabbing. So this is my brightest bright. I'm going to go B. I'm going to use and then the blue, and then kind of the bluer highlights, right? And then some of the darks, and then some of the shadow, right? And as you can see, even the shadow, right? When I say black, like this is as true black as they get, and it never even touches the the bottom. It's not 255 555 black or whatever the HSV number is, right? Very subtle. And then for color of pop, right? They've got the red. So this is very, very cool, very interesting use of color. And then even this has its own variations, right? And then the hot, 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 hot. So this would be my color palette, right? So if I was going to paint something like this, it would be my color palette to use for something like this. So I would start with that. I've got my color palette here, right? This is my basic color palette. And now I can use this to kind of denote foreground, middle ground, background, right? And then my color pop. All right. So now that I've got a good good idea of what I want it to look like, I can start then just color picking. So I'm just gonna I'll do like my midtones first. So let's do the darks first, because then I can then start to whoops. Alright. Might even go bigger on my brush. Just go big. And then up here. Alright. I'm doing multiply. I'm just trying to see what I really did like that. Maybe either multiply or soft light, I think usually. No. Okay. Might add one more up here. Alright, so what I can do actually is, because of how this model is, since all I've done is just add a little bit of I just masked out the clouds. might end up doing is doing something like this instead, where I maybe instead of that, you can try it this way, where you make it so the line art is what is. Okay, let's maybe. Okay, let's try this. We go M on my keyboard. I'm gonna make a material that's just completely white, just so I can get some line work from this. Let's go white. Okay, now let us alright, cool. There we go, that's what I got on it. Alright, this makes more sense. Alright, so now I can see my line work and all of my painting can go under it. So I'm just gonna go B on my keyboard. Alright, now I'm just gonna go true black over here. Alright, this is as dark as it's gonna get. So I'm just going to use the colors that I have selected to kind of start blocking in some of these shapes. Alright, let's go to the mountains. Like so. Alright. Now we're just using it as kind of like our base. Alright, not kind of. We are using it as our base. So now I can start painting away. Alright, and the idea is you're getting very kind of gestural with a lot of this stuff right now, right? This is my background a little bit. A lot of this too still background. And you can use right, to assist yourself, right? If you don't make it too hard on yourself, you can do W, select, and then just select some of these areas, right? And what that does is since you have it masked, right? Since you have it masked, now whenever you paint, the paint will only go into these areas, right? So this kind of saves you a little bit of time, saves you a little bit of effort, so you're not having to be super precise, super perfect whenever you're doing a lot of this stuff. So I've got my color palette, I've got my mood, kind of going right now. It's very blue, it's very somber, it's very chill, and that changes so drastically, right? Whenever we're going from like a blue to like you see this is like the base white, and then you add a little bit of your own flair, and then let me see. Go W here, so like that. Go back here, B, right? See how easy it is to just start putting paint on canvas or the paper or the digital paper, I guess. I don't know what the hell. So I can then select, some of these guys. Oops. Hit B on the keyboard. Nope. Alright, so use this. I just painted on the same layer as my color palette, and I did not want that, so I just reversed the action. Now I'm back to square one. All right. So, and because I had already gone over the darks, I've already gone over like my base layer of like, all right, my foreground is dark, my middle ground is a little lighter, my background is super light. Right now, all I'm doing is layering on top of that the rest of this. Let me actually, because I don't want this to happen again, so I'm just gonna maybe create something over here. Move tool, and I'm gonna move my my color palette over to the left. over here. All right, and the cool thing about Photoshop is now they've got kind of generative AI, and this is when, you know, you can start to use a little bit of AI to kind of get something interesting going on. So I can go into hit W. Let's just, instead of doing that, let's just paint it. All right. Clouds aren't that hard to paint. All right. Now we've got that isolated. I can go in here and then hit B, Alt. All right, and this is our brightest brights. All right, and then let's throw in some of this accent work. It's not going to be a lot, but it will it'll help make some of this stuff pop a little bit more. And so let me go for a softer brush. Alright, just gonna add it subtly. Nothing too crazy, too flamboyant, just maybe a little bit of accent. Right? Just a little accent. And I don't want to take up, you know, too much of the and then what you can do is here's a little trick I learned. Just do a screen. Right? I'm just going to use my wand again to select some of this stuff. There you go. There you go. Okay. That's fine. Why my keyboard shortcuts are not working right now, but interesting. There we go. All right. Add a mask. So I've got this kind of like interesting glow thing coming from the ground. Kind of like that. That's going on. I'm just cleaning up some of this extra stuff that's going on here. Just cleaning it up a little bit. Right, and I haven't added any detail or anything to it, right? So when you start getting into these, like it's super easy to get kind of lost in the sauce, right? But if you start simple, you start with the basics. Like I'm not gonna go into crazy detail, start adding pieces and parts here and stuff like that. But this is, this assignment is about mood and painting, and this almost feels like a nighttime. The moon is full, and then the next one I'm gonna do is probably gonna be like the opposite of it, where you get something bright, you know, um, and that's the main idea. All right, so we've got something interesting here. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, say cool, and then I'm gonna do the exact opposite. I'm gonna do Control C, and then Control V here. So now I've got this guy again. I'm gonna start. So this is our first one, kind of a nighttime glow scene, and then the next one, I will use a similar. Right. Copy this image. Actually, let's see if I can find one of these. Here we go. All right, so here's the next one we're going to use. So this one is going to be very kind of orange, bright, dystopian-y. And we're going to use this kind of color palette. So as usual, the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to select, either go from top to bottom, which is your brights, to the darks, or the opposite. So you might start super dark. All right, let me make a new layer on Photoshop. Right, you're just gonna start. Oh, this is I'm using the wrong brush. I want a hard round brush. Right, one, and then two. Kind of like my mid ground. Three. This is the start of the. This kind of looks like the mid ground still. Alright, we're gonna then start going up into the background, and then here's our brightest bright. Right, that's as bright as we're gonna go. Right, and then that's our sky. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So we've got all of our elements. We've got our let me add file here. Stop suggesting stuff, you stupid. So I'm just gonna hide this since I don't use it. I don't need it anymore. All I needed it for was the colors. All right. So now I've got what is, I'm going to do the same technique, right? You guys saw this, the technique that I did earlier, which is, all right, I'm just going to grab a big, broad brush, right? Multiply. Let's put this under, and then I'm just going to start painting. All right, we've got our boom. And then boom, 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 and then the sky, and then our brightest point, which is this guy right here. So all right, and as you can see already, like, just the difference in the mood, the feeling that you're gonna get from this guy. Right, another thing I'm gonna do is on this guy, I'm gonna hit W. Let me reduce my tolerance. This is 90. Let's do 10. All right. So I just reduced my tolerance, and I can then let's replace this guy with something like, there we go. So now we've got a ginormously awesome piece of background here, which is nice. Okay, on the keyboard, I'm going to select my sphere here. Let me just do the tolerance up. Right, and if you increase the tolerance, it's just going to increase the area that the color picker is going to select. And then with that, I'm going to make a new layer, B on the keyboard, Alt to color pick. Boom, we've got our kind of like resplendent sun kind of thing going on over here. And with this kind of painting, with this kind of painting here. Another thing you can do is when you're starting with the darks, right? You can then go boom. All right, so now think, right? You're gonna think, all right, what should be in shadow, right? Obviously, the bottom of all right, what should be in shadow? Boom. The bottom of this fuselage should be in shadow. Do I have anything selected? Marquee selected? Yes. All right, I'm gonna go B. I'm just going to start adding some of this super shadow stuff too. Right, and if I don't want to, if I don't want to have to deal with any of that, I can then, you know, use the eyedrop picker, whatever, or the magic wand to isolate whatever it is I'm trying to isolate. Right, so obviously something like this, right, this propeller right here that's jammed into the ground unrealistically is all crap, would obviously be there. Right, maybe zoom in a little bit. All right, and then we're gonna just start painting. Right, and I haven't gone to like super in depth. I'm just trying to show you guys how I would we're creating mood, right? How color is going to affect the mood of your painting, what it does. So all I'm doing now is just finding the shadows, here, blending a little bit, not too crazy. I'm just finding shadows. I'm just assigning what's supposed to be in shadow is in shadow, and then the next thing you'll do is what's supposed to be lit up is lit up. And you know, you start with a base and then you just keep building and building and building on top of that base until you get something that you desire. All right, so I'm just going back to my reference to see if there's anything that I wanted to like kind of call out, add, put in when I'm looking at the propellers, what they look like, you know. And what happens is what I'm noticing when I'm looking at the reference images is how the propellers themselves, like, they get darker as they meet the center point. That could be lighting, that could be a certain number of things. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm looking at this propeller. I'm looking that there's like, you see how as it gets down into where this is, it gets more in shadow, right? So that's another thing that you can try to replicate. So maybe you would go up here, right? And then you would start to maybe add a little bit of, right? Add a little love, right? Right. And do that, kind of gives like a wingtip almost. Right, and these are mood paintings. They're not supposed to be detailed or in-depth or anything like that. So that's why I don't want you guys to go too crazy with these. This is not your final. This is not any of that. So you just want to start creating these relationships between the values, the color, the contrast, dark, light, shadow. You want to be able to identify what pieces need to go into shade, what pieces need to come into light, right? And then address them, right? Painting is something that over time, right, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time to be proficient, to be good at this. But if you practice, right, it's one of those things that it's not like if you practice, you're going to get worse at it. You're going to get better. And the more time you spend looking at reference, the more time you spend looking at, you know, different pieces and things like that, it will definitely help you. It's gonna So if whenever you're drawing something and you hold down shift, so it'll make a straight line, right? That's how I'm getting the straight line. Just so you know. Just for your edification, right? So now I've added some more interest. I might want to boop. Right. I did want to add a water feature, but this is looking more like I'm just adding rocks to it, so I'm just gonna go with that. So now if I want to, right, I can go here. I'm gonna select, I'm just gonna select the mountains themselves, right, and then add my my background color to them. All right. B on the keyboard. That's the brush. That's the wrong color. There we go. There we go. All right, and as you can see now, we have a distinct separation from our foreground, our middle ground, and our background. That's what we want. So now I'm just going to use this to maybe paint some highlights in here. Same process. Right? All right, so my tolerance is obviously too high, I'm selecting everything. Let's do 8. There you go. Shift will add to your selection. So all I'm going to do now is hit B on my keyboard, Alt, boom, just like that. All right, the more you do this, the easier, the better you guys are going to be. All right, and as you guys can see just from my 2 images, like the one seems bright and inviting, and you know, I mean, they're still dystopian landscapes, right? They're still like these plain graveyards, right? You still have 2 plain graveyards, but they have 2 distinctively different values to them, right? And then we could even start to use some of this for right. And what shadows do is it gives objects weight, right? If you didn't know that before, well, that's what the purpose of shadows are for, is it grounds your object. That's why if you see it, you know, if you ever see a movie and there's something floating, it's gonna look a little unrealistic because you're gonna be like, wait a minute. That doesn't look like it's grounded on this planet. It doesn't look like it's grounded into this reality, right? That's why shadows, contact shadows. I mean, I think we've already talked about how shadows work and things like that. The contact shadow, and how it affects what we see, how it makes it look like our characters either standing on the ground, looks like they have weight to them. The way they're distributing their weight, right? It also, all of it affects Just gonna use this to right? We're creating weight, we're creating depth, we're creating this place, and we're using reality, right, to really say, all right, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to not look like, and you guys can see the gnarliness, and it's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you know, the more you take your time, you do things the right way, you build a foundation, you can really start to get something that looks cool. So right now you see how this line is going like this? It doesn't make any sense because all the other lines are converging this way, right? What this tells you is the vanishing point is somewhere back there somewhere, right? And you guys can use that to your advantage because now you know, okay, well, let me clean this up, right? Because what the viewer might not know why it looks off, but their brain is telling them, that don't look right, bruh. All right? And this guy, we can safely say, all right, and then be on the keyboard. There we go. That's why the mask selections just are so helpful. You know, they help you select something real quick, and you can have something, you know. And the cool thing is, like, you know, once you guys start getting into the painting aspect of it, right? You know, you'll start to add things to it to make it look a little more interesting. Like you can start to add, you know, some wires and stuff, and let me see if I can increase my smoothing so that my lines don't look like I'm too, you know. Right. Right, the problem with once you start getting into stuff like that, it's you're gonna start going down this rabbit hole. But overall, just focus on the mood that you're trying to set for your image, and that's all you're required to do for this assignment. All right, so that is today's demo. I didn't, you know, I could start going into this and just keep on keeping on, but I want you guys to just get me a general mood, painting out 2 different moods. Do an extra one for extra credit if you want, but you can do like a daytime, nighttime, kind of like a ominous versus not ominous, or something bright and happy. So you guys can really, you know, so I want you guys to do that. Post the color palettes that you use for them. I'll post it myself so you guys see what I'm looking for. I don't want you guys to be confused about the assignment. So, yeah, post that, and then that's it. Like, if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to ask. Feel free to post in the, you know, in the chat. Send me a message. You know, I don't want to go too far into this just because, man, you can start to get, you know, I can start to add wires, characters. You know, I want to add a little. It just gets your imagination kind of flowing, right? When you start doing these kind of like raw, kind of like gestural, you're letting your mind freely associate with what you're drawing. You can start to get into some really cool and interesting places, and you'll go down a rabbit hole. You know, you'll spend a whole day painting something. You're like, oh my god, I've been here all day, just, you know, into this one piece. So you definitely have that opportunity. So yeah, this is what you guys are supposed to do. Does anybody in the chat have any questions for me so far? Malik, you good?
Is this for the mood assignment?
Yeah, yeah, yep. It's exactly what it's for.
Do I have to draw something from like a TV show or whatever, and then like
You can,
just like cut
yeah, you can draw
it?
anything
Okay.
you want, or you can. I'm gonna post the one I did. I'm gonna post it in the chat so you can use that one to practice if you want.
Say it again.
You can use the one that I have. So I'm gonna toss it into the general chat right now, and then you guys can
Hmm.
use it if you want. You can use the one I have, and then just do your painting practice on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
sounds good. All right, man. It was nice talking to you guys today. Today's class was a lot shorter than usual. Yeah, so I will see you guys next class.
Yep.